Hello, and welcome back to the Carbon Capture Magazine podcast. I'm your host, Danielle Piekarski, and today we are joined by two folks from the Great Plains Institute, Nate Morris and Emma Tomley, whose name you may recognize from a previous episode. Welcome to the podcast, Emma and Nate.
Thanks, Danielle. It's great to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. So excited to be here with y'all.
Of course. Thank you for joining us today. To begin, Emma and Nate, could I have you both tell our listeners about your background and what type of work that you do at the Great Plains Institute?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. For those of you who haven't heard me before, I'm Emma, a state and regional policy specialist at the Great Plains Institute, or GPI. My role involves tracking and analyzing state legislation related to carbon management, supporting and developing our state outreach efforts, and contributing to various content creation efforts such as fact sheets or reports. In addition to all of that, I've also been leading efforts to expand our team's focus on direct air capture over the past year or so, which has been really exciting.
Yeah, and again, great to be here. My name is Nate. I'm the State and Regional Education Outreach Manager at GPI. So I get the privilege of working with Emma every day, which is just the best. A lot of my role centers around supporting state and community officials with education and outreach resources around carbon management specifically. So this, in a nutshell, looks like supporting states with tools for outreach, or helping state officials ideate ways to incorporate carbon management and decarbonization efforts within their locus of control. And in the case of the decision support tool, getting to work alongside Emma and the rest of our amazing team to directly engage and connect with community members and states across the country.
Great. Thank you both. So Nate, you had mentioned the decision support tool, which is the focus of today's podcast. Can you tell us what this Louisiana Community Decision Support Tool is, how it functions, and what it aims to achieve in terms of carbon management projects?
Yes, Danielle, I'd be happy to hop in here. The Louisiana Decision Support Tool is a resource developed by GPI to provide community members, project developers, and regulators with access to vital social and environmental data relevant to carbon management project location decisions. It functions essentially through a web page that contains a series of interactive maps that highlight key factors, including demographics, environmental hazards, and legal considerations that, in this case, are specific to Louisiana. So if you're someone who's trying to use one of these interactive maps, you can select a map, put in your address, and zoom in on your community to see all of the data that might be important to you. Overall, what we're hoping to do with the tool is foster transparent dialogue, collaboration, and informed decision-making among stakeholders involved in carbon management projects, ultimately and hopefully contributing to more sustainable and equitable outcomes in the region.
Yeah, and just to tack on to what Emma just said, speaking specifically about equity, right, there has been a really increased and really important emphasis on environmental justice and equity in carbon management and then broadly over the last 3 or 4 years. And the decision support tool, on our end really tries to increase equity of access to information, right? So helping to ensure that government officials, developers, and especially community members who live in the areas that may be eventually a good fit for a carbon management project can find, study, and use the exact same rich data in a really interactive and user-friendly format, right? So we want to ensure that this isn't information that's held for certain groups, that this is available and accessible to everyone.
So what is the reasoning behind choosing Louisiana as the state to develop the community decision support tool around?
First of all, Louisiana is an ideal carbon capture and storage location. The state has a lot of pre-existing infrastructure, geologic potential for storing that carbon dioxide underground, and has quite a few well-established regulations surrounding carbon management. And because of all of these factors, including that the state just received Class 6 primacy for the injection process for carbon dioxide, many power, industrial, and direct air capture companies have expressed interest or announced projects that are all aimed at reducing carbon emissions in different ways across the state. This interest from project developers has led to an abundance of questions from Louisiana communities about project locations and regulations. And many of these community members and stakeholders across the state have never heard of carbon management before. So GPI chose Louisiana for this first iteration of the decision support tool to help answer those questions and overall support informed decision making in Louisiana's carbon management initiatives.
Super cool. Okay. So what criteria does the tool use to assess areas for suitable carbon management projects? And how did you determine what criteria to use?
Yeah, definitely. So couple ways to answer that question, right? So first, the tool has a really multifaceted approach to assess areas that are suitable for carbon management projects, right? So it considers various social factors that include things like demographics, exposure to climate change, health indicators, and even proximity to environmental hazards. And then it also examines the environmental factors, right? Which are more so things along the lines of protected land or water resources or wildlife habitats or even built environments, right? The current infrastructure that exists within that area. And these criteria are determined based on rigorous analysis and consultation with experts to ensure that there's really comprehensive coverage for relevant considerations when we're thinking about how to site projects. In addition to that, though, we didn't just leave it to those really important and critical and great conversations with experts. We also wanted to ensure that community voice was a part of this process too. So we wanted to ensure that that voice was a piece of it and that the tool could function in a way that allowed community members to use it and engage with it really effectively and really usefully. So in the process of developing it, for instance, our team held 4 community meetings in 4 different cities all across the state of Louisiana. So we met with folks in Baton Rouge, in the New Orleans area, the Lake Charles area, in Alexandria, and tried to get their insight and their feedback on the tool itself as they were using it for the first time. And then we worked to incorporate that feedback into the final model and final version of the tool. So we really wanted to ensure that when the tool is used to make these determinations and when the data was input into this tool, that it had and held that really rich information from experts in this area, and then also coupled that with input and voices of community folks who are the ones who are going to be most directly affected by any of these decisions that are made.
It sounds like it's super user-friendly for community members who may not have a background in carbon management or environmental science. Are there any other efforts to make the tool more accessible to a wider audience?
That's a great question, Danielle. I would say that while we've worked really hard to make the decision support tool user-friendly, we recognize that these conversations and tools like this can still be pretty complex, especially for people without a background in carbon management or without experience working with online tools. So to help do this, we've done a few things. We've created detailed guides on what the maps contain within the web page. We've simplified explanations of complex topics related to carbon management. We also added a video tutorial to make navigating the tool easier. In addition to all of that, we've included a feedback form on the tool. So if any new users stumble upon it, they can reach out to us and ask for more explanations on how to use the tool or about any of the topics we've written about within the tool. We've also taken some time to try and socialize the tool with Louisiana residents at our community and stakeholder meetings and just sent it out to all the stakeholders within the state. But even with all of that, it might take some time for users to get the hang of those interactive maps and data, just because there is so much information and it might not be easy to use at first glance. However, feedback from the community meetings that we held about the tool has still been really positive, showing us that once people know how to use the tool, they find it super valuable for learning more about the data behind various environmental and social factors within their community and understanding how how those different factors might drive a project's development or lack of development.
Thank you, Emma. So, how do you envision the future evolution of this tool, especially considering advancements in technology and changes in specific carbon management practices?
Yeah, definitely. And I'll start off here. Then, Emma, I'm sure has a lot of rich information to share as well. But I would say that the future of the decision support tool really holds a lot of potential, right? So we are continuing an ongoing collaboration with stakeholders and really working to, as Emma alluded to, continue to refine the tool based on user feedback. And so we did incorporate that feedback form into the tool itself. So anybody who uses it can provide us with thoughts and suggestions and ideas around how to make it better. Because we want to make sure that it remains relevant and that it's responsive and evolving to the needs of community members, the needs of decision makers as carbon management technology continues to be deployed across the country. We understand that also means that the tool's data is going to need to be updated periodically. And so as we're able to secure that funding to do so, we want to ensure that the tool remains relevant in that way as well, right? With updated information, updated data to ensure that its use kind of can span as long as we're able to ensure that it's able to be there and folks are able to access it and really use what we think is a great opportunity and a great resource.
Thanks, Nate. I'd just like to add that as we learned a lot from the development of the tool and the feedback that we got in Louisiana, and we saw the excitement about having access to this information, we felt that it was really important to try and provide that same access to information to different communities and stakeholder groups in other states. So we're excited to announce that we're going to be expanding the tool to Colorado this year. And we know that each state has its own unique data and community preferences. So we're really excited to see how these community meetings in Colorado go and what feedback we receive, because it may be very different from what we saw in Louisiana. But overall, this expansion to Colorado and hopefully to more states in the future reflects GPI's commitment to improving access to comprehensive data for carbon management projects across different regions of the US. Hopefully, we're going to continue to refine and adapt the tool to meet the specific needs of each state and ensure that it remains a valuable resource for all stakeholders involved in carbon management. So stay tuned for updates on our progress and the insights that we'll get from those Colorado meetings.
How exciting. Okay. So we are unfortunately coming near the end of our time here. Did either of you have anything else that you'd like to add before we close it out?
I mean, I would definitely invite folks to, try the tool out for themselves. So you can go, as GPI, we have, several organizations that we kind of collaborate around and with and, support. One of those is the Carbon Action Alliance, and that's where we house this tool. So folks can go to carbonactionalliance.org and you can navigate to the communities page at the top, at the top bar where the different pages are located, and just drop down to Decision Support Tool, and that will take you to the Louisiana version. And that gives you the chance to play around with the tool yourself, to kind of look through all the various factors that exist across the state of Louisiana. Like Emma mentioned, there you can see me talking more in a monotone voice for a video tutorial if you like. And we just invite you to try it out and provide any feedback as well, because that's really helpful to us as we, like Emma mentioned, just have really exciting opportunities to continue expanding this tool beyond just Louisiana.
Yeah, and I would just add that while this tool can be a super valuable resource, and that's what we're hoping it to be, that community preferences and perspectives around carbon management are going to be very different. And that on the project developer side of things, addressing questions about project funding and transparency in the decision-making processes are essential and aspects that we're committed to continue addressing in our ongoing efforts to support sustainable carbon management practices. I'd just like to say that the decision support tool does not grant approval for project development, and that overall we really just want to make sure that it's clear that the tool's purpose is to inform meaningful discussions to ensure that community input is heard and valued, and that carbon management projects are thoughtfully located.
All right. Well, thank you again. Today we are joined by Emma Tomley and Nate Morris of the Great Plains Institute. Thank you both again for joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you for having us, Danielle. It's been great.
Thank you, Danielle. Until next time.
Yes, and thank you to our listeners. If you or your organization is interested in recording a podcast, please reach out. For more podcasts like this one, visit carboncapturemagazine.com and subscribe for industry news. We hope that you enjoyed this podcast and look forward to next time. Until then.